But easy.
Good afternoon. Welcome once again to Blakey's Bootroom here on Wales Online at the end of a rather eventful 24 hours. Paul Trollope gone, Neil Warnock in, and Nathan Blake and Paul Abandonado here to discuss it all. Chaps, a lively day or so we've had in the office, haven't we? Happened all a bit quicker than we expected. What do you make of it, Nathan? Right decision to get rid of
I think it was the right decision, yeah. It was going to be difficult to continue along the path they were going. I think a lot said of performances often, and the performances weren't good enough, and you couldn't see them getting better in the near future. So you leave it go another 3 or 4 games, a third of the season gone. You just can't afford to be in the situation you're in. You know, me, John, always call for patience and longevity and all that, but I also recognise we're in a different era, and instant success is what's called for, or along them lines. So it was inevitable, really. Yeah,
we'll talk a bit more about the whys and wherefores of Trollope's reign, Paul, in a bit. But Neil Warnock appointed, and fair to say, I think, from the initial reaction, it's probably the happiest Cardiff City fans have been for a couple of years. It seems like it seems to be an appointment that's got people a little bit excited. Proper football man with a good track record.
Yeah, they made 2 right decisions. First, to get rid of Trollope. That was important, though, because there was a follow-up to that. Who do you replace him with? And there was a complete lack of trust from some fans about just who they would replace him with. They've replaced him with an outstanding appointment. I think this is the best appointment Cardiff have made manager-wise, although you could say that's not saying much. But I'd say for a decade, since they first brought Dave Jones on board and he had Premier League experience. I know Malky Mackay did a great job, but in terms of exciting the fans, Warnock is on another level again, and I think, given his proven track record, I can understand the excitement from Cardiff fans, and it's actually a joy to behold, Nath, isn't it, to actually hear them talking positively again, rather than all the negative
Absolutely, Paul,
I have to say a couple of things. A lot of fans, I think, the fans are entitled to their view. Of course they are. They pay their money, they say what they want, but there was a constant negativity towards the board, rightly or wrongly.
You want to hear Nathan?
Well, but I don't think I heard Nathan saying, "Oh, these people will never work for Vincent Tan," blah blah blah. Not publicly, anyway. Or Vincent Tan will never pay the money to land this type of manager. Well, Warnock is working for Vincent Tan, and Tan has agreed to fund the capture of Neil Warnock, which hasn't come cheap. So, hey, there's a combustible mix there. Let's wait and see how long it lasts. But, on paper, this is a win-win situation for everybody in the Welsh capital.
In fairness, though, I mean, the Bluebirds way that's been talked about by Ken Chew and people in recent weeks about trying to build an identity, a DNA of what the club's going to be.
The club had an identity long before they got here. They had a way of playing long before they got here.
Yeah, well, they haven't for years, and that's what they said they're going to do. That's why they appointed Trollope, a young coach. That's what they said they wanted to go down the route. But now we've got Neil Warnock for probably, a year or so? Probably not much more than that. He said he wanted 1 more year or so. He's not going to be here for a long time, is he? So what happens after him?
Well, this is, I said this last night, I think, the Cardiff's problem is, I mean, what you said there, what Ken Chew is, I just don't understand. I think under probably Malky Mackay was the first time I can remember since playing for the club and before, the club going away from that footballing, fast football attack, not always from back to front, good footballers as well. Under Mackay was probably the first time we went away from that, so I don't quite understand that. But, longevity-wise, I think, the club they have to have a long-term plan. They have to have a structure within the club. I've spoken about that many times. The structure in the club is poor, simple as that. I've said it and I don't mind saying it. I think the under-21s, the youth, the under-18s, the coaching standards, I think, is poor. Their recruitment, I think, a lot is left to be desired. I hear so many stories, and I know a lot of people, so I know, there's not thousands of people in the academy, and some of the stories I hear, are just crazy. So for me, it's the overall structure, the whole thing. I said last night, I'd rip the whole thing up and start again. Now, in this short-term period, the board, the chief executive, there's no transfers that can be done between now and January. So just leave the man get on with the job and focus on restructuring the club. Whether that's from top down, I would suggest bottom up. Because you've now got a man in place at the first team, you can almost say, well, I can leave that to one side. You've got to, right, just employing the manager isn't going to get all the fans back on side. Yeah, so you've got to come find ways and different strategies of, right, getting the fans back through the door. That's one. And like I said, then look at the overall picture and try and amalgamate the two, the fans and the structure of the club. So the fans feel the hard-earned money I'm paying is actually, I can see what the club is actually building. Because for the last 3 or 4 years for me, they've just gone, oh yeah, we'll do that. Oh no, we'll do that. No, we'll do that. There's been no sort of plan in place. And everyone knows, man without a plan, you often go nowhere. You're just like a dog chasing his tail. So for me, that's what I would be looking to do now, a medium to long-term plan while the short-term fix is in place.
Why is Warnock the right man then, Paul, for you? Because those long-term things, that's not what he's about, is it?
Because we are in an era, as Blakey says, of instant success. He has a proven track record in the Championship stroke lower leagues. Neil Warnock reminds me a little bit of some of the star names, stellar names that Dave Jones got in, like Michael Chopra, Jay Bothroyd in their pomp. They were almost too good for the Championship but not quite good enough for the Premier League, and Warnock strikes me as that sort of manager. He is, you know, the prototype of what you need at this level if you're to get out of this division. He'll galvanise the players, the dressing room. We've already seen evidence of fantastic videos with his motivational speeches and so on. His passion. Cardiff City fans are very, very passionate, but you know, they've not really had anything to feed off from the managers or the team in, well, probably since Malky left, to be perfectly honest with you. Warnock's very presence and aura, that will feed through to the fans. They will then sort of recreate their passion off of that, if you like. That will feed back to the players, and that all becomes a one-team attitude, which probably hasn't been there recently. I was at the last home game when they lost 2-0 to Derby, and to be perfectly honest, fans around me were almost openly mocking some of the players and the manager, and I've never heard that. I was saying to Blakey, I've never heard that with Cardiff City fans
they were
before.
Singing.
I've covered Cardiff, you know, from the times that Blakey himself was playing. I've never heard that sort of thing. They're almost taking the mickey at
their own.
At their own pace, you know, oh, that's a clever pass, isn't it? When players were passing the ball backwards and so on. As Nathan said, Cardiff fans they don't want a Swansea City style slow approach. That suits Swansea, but Cardiff fans are used to a fast-paced game. And while I think the virtue of the Welsh way in theory is a good one, Cardiff fans want that ball got forward quickly. They want players up into sport, don't they? They always have done. Am I right?
Yeah. And that's what I say to John. You know, the club hasn't got an identity and things like that. You know, the problem was, you know, the hierarchy now tried to force a new identity on the club, and it just, there was no need for it. And that's where the two split ways for me. So, you know, like Paul says, I was at Rotherham, and you know, the fans there, we won the game, but when we were 1-0 down or prior to that, I've never heard them sing ironic songs on taking the mick out of the fact that we can't score, the fact that where we are in the league, the fact, like you said, can't pass the ball. But you know, they were passing the ball, but they were really, really taking the mick out of themselves, out of the club, the players in general. I'd never heard that before. That was a new low for me. I just thought, right, if there's anyone here from the board or anything like that, it's easy to close your ears and shut off to it. But notice that the travelling army is diminishing week by week by week by week. So there is a fundamental problem. You're going to have to solve it, or the outcome is you've got no away fans or very little away fans and 10,000 home fans.
John, what I would say is that the Welsh way, the other strand of the Welsh way, was right in theory, which is they want more homegrown Welsh players brought into that team. Now, from the time Nathan himself first came to the side, I remember watching that team. Jason Perry was a member of that team, Damon Searle was a member of that team. The fans sort of feed off those homegrown players. They give them extra latitude, they get behind them. Since then, we've had Rob Earnshaw come through, we've had Aaron Ramsey, we've had Joe Ledley for 4 great seasons. There are others as well, but
Gareth Abraham, Alan Lewis,
Lee Badley,
yeah,
but
Jams.
since in the last 2 or 3 years, we've not had that, and I think that their instructions to Paul Trollope to bring through homegrown players was in theory a good one. But again, I think that's more of a long-term plan than a short-term plan. The only one I see at the moment is Declan John. Will Declan John figure under Neil Warnock's
And the problem with, we're going to now introduce our young Welsh players. Listen, you have to be good enough.
Yeah.
That's, I think, some of the problem that the young players don't understand, and that the club have yet to grasp. If they're not good enough, why is Paul Trollope or Neil Warnock going to play a player in the Championship? Because I guarantee you, give him 2 or 3 games, and the fans will be, he's not good enough, get him out.
Yeah.
It's not like they'll love you if you're crap. It's for me. It's like, if you're not good enough, hey, there's the door, see you later. We want to see players who can handle this league. And they're in a Championship now. They're not in League 2, they're not in League 1, they're in the Championship. So the players have to be on it. And that's why I say the whole policy throughout the academy and everything needs to improve. The coaching standard needs to improve. I know the young coaches will all be looking at me going, oh, well, yeah, well, you do it. But listen, I know more on my little finger than those coaches, know, you can get your A license, your pro license, whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Nate was always modest as a player.
Well, I say it all the time, Paul, there's not enough football influence or footballers' influence in the academy. Because I can, listen, you could coach, your son, your daughter grows up, wants to play football. You coach her and her team out of the goodness of her heart. Great. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But that game towards the women's professional game, the gap is huge. Now, for your daughter to go on to play professionally, you would want people of the highest standard, preferably who've been there, seen it, done it, got the T-shirt. No? Right, because there's little things that an academic coach can't teach you that I can see in a split second. It's as simple as that. Why? Because it's just the experience of playing the game. I.e., just like the job you guys do. You'll know things that I wouldn't even, I'd be totally oblivious to. Many things, John, many things. Yes. That's what you the man. You the man. No, you caught in between the day.
Well, what is, moving on from our attributes, what is Neil Warnock's team going to look like then? Does he solve all the problems we've been talking about, width, pace, balls into box? Who plays? What's the big change coming in the Cardiff City 11 when they play Bristol City?
Well, I suppose that's the next question to ask once we get over the fact he's in, and ultimately we'll start analysing what would his team look like. He hasn't got much pace there, is the honest answer. Kadeem Harris, who Nathan really talks up, is one player with pace. Declan John's another one. I know Blakey advocates them both playing further forward. I think the big winner will be Aaron Gunnarsson. He clearly likes what I would term dogs of war, and maybe Gunnar could be his midfield kingpin there, possibly even his captain in due course. I would have thought he likes Ricky Lambert big time. He'll like the centre-backs, Manga, Connolly and Morrison. I think he'll like all of them. He'll probably love a tough tackling right back like Lee Peltier. So straight away you're getting the main players in there, if you like, from his perspective. What he will do is he will bring a proper blend to that side. I don't think he will play with wide men who don't have any pace, for example, as Trollope was doing with Joe Riles in recent times, which is a problem exacerbated even further for when you've got Joe Riles on the left, you've got Immers and you've got Ricky Lambert up top. There's no pace there,
no dynamism,
no real creativity. nothing for the fans to get excited about, nothing to really...
And that's no disrespect to them boys.
No.
It's not because,
No.
you know, you have got pace or you haven't. You know what I mean? Immer's got other things that he's very clever. Without the pace, he's got a very clever mind. Doesn't seem to be at it this year, but I would say under Warnock, what you'll see as well is a confidence lift.
Yeah.
He's that type of guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
And the point I'd make is that I think that I think we can all agree these players are a lot better than 23rd in the table. It's a question of how good they are. I think that he's inheriting a reasonable squad of players here who are punching way below their weights. Let's put it this way, they are infinitely superior to the Rotherham team that he got out of a relegation mess last season. So he's actually working with some decent players here. So given his organisation, his man management skills, his motivational pep talks, you know, I think they can aim reasonably high at the moment. I really do. That's the reason for the optimism, rightly or wrongly.
Indeed. Well, talking of optimism, let's get a few comments from the supporters. Lawrence maybe sums up the mood. Says, "Hi guys, I'm over the moon. We have a football person in charge finally. I'm already looking forward to our next match. Just so you know, he's going to light the fuse and get Cardiff Stadium rocking again. I can see the rain clouds moving away," which perhaps sums up the general mood. Steve says, "Great appointment, but would have liked Craig Bellamy to take over when Warnock retires." A couple of people saying they would have liked Bellamy to come on board as part of this, maybe as a long-term thing. Was that ever something?
I don't know what's happened with that situation.
That would be possible? Would is Bellamy interested in? Are they interested in Bellamy?
I don't know.
What can we say, Paul?
Yeah.
Well, it depends what I mean, Bellamy's been part of the coaching setup there, remember, with the younger kids there. So it's not as if he's completely cut off from the situation. I could see Bellamy learning under Warnock and becoming the long-term successor. But, you know, Neil Warnock's bringing in his own regular number 2 and number 3.
Ronnie Jepson.
Yeah, Ronnie Jepson's there, and Ian Blackwell's the other one.
I need to speak to Ronnie, so if he watches, it's about Windy Miller.
Don't laugh at this, but James Rowberry is there in the coaching setup. I know that he is rated very, very highly by Vincent.
He came up last time, didn't he?
Came up last time.
So was Paul Trollope.
He was, yeah. Rowberry's younger, so perhaps he's got, you know, more latitude in that respect in terms of he hasn't...
He's one of those academic coaches Blakey doesn't like.
He is, yeah. No, but I like him. But I think, you know, he could learn so much from someone like Warnock.
This is the point I'm making. So could this be the making of somebody like James Rowberry for the future? I'm just throwing that out there at the moment. Who knows what's going to happen is the answer to the equation. I'd love to see Bellamy in there as well. Maybe him and Warnock would be too much of a clash. You know, I've got Warnock and Tan first of all. Let's get over that one. You know,
it's going to be ding ding.
But you know.
But what happens when we come to January then, which is maybe when the sort of Warnock-Tan relationship might be tested if new players are wanted? How will that work? Will it be Warnock's players that they get or not?
Well, you can't. It's difficult to say because it's difficult to see how long is he going to stay. We know it's a short term. Will he continue and say, okay, yeah, I'll bolt on another 2 years? I mean, that's what I talk about planning. It's, you know, the chief executive and them now, the chair, the board, they go off, plan until, you know, you drop in ready to sleep. Go and plan. Have a plan A, plan B. You know, speak to Neil. You know, take his thoughts. What we should do. Where should we be going? What should we be looking for? You know, they've been at the club 4 or 5 years. They've got no experience of what they've got experience of is working within a football club, yeah, and they have the success of being promoted to the Premier League once. But I don't think Ken Chu was here then, was he? As the chief executive. So as a group, they have little or no experience of success. You know, they need to feed them and take things from people of experience, especially of Neil's ilk, and put it into practice.
I think the answer to that question in the short term, and clearly this would have formed part of his discussions with the chairman, Mehmet Dalman, but the answer to that question in the short term is that he's inheriting some excellent defenders at championship level, really good centre-backs, good full-backs. He's inheriting Aaron Gunnarsson, Peter Whittingham, I think Emma Hughes, with his physical presence, could form a part of Warnock's midfield. So he's inheriting a central midfield area there. Craig Noon on his day, there aren't many better wingers than him, although he's way off his best at the moment.
Has been for some time.
Yeah, there aren't many better wingers than him in the
Yeah, just chuck that in.
in the Championship. He may get the best out of him. Anthony Pilkington is a decent player. What I'm saying is there's already, when you add Ricky Lambert there, Lex Simmers, one or two others, he's already inheriting a squad of players. He probably only needs one or two additions to that, and I would have thought they have to be his calls.
I would agree with that. I think 2 or 3 more players, and I wouldn't be worried about defensively too much. I wouldn't be overly worried about the central of midfield. But what I would be looking for that pace.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I would be out looking for now. That pace. Whether that's in the fullback position or the wing position or up in the 3, or I would be looking for pace.
What about the striker position then? Because we were talking the other day when Ricky Lambert went off in that Derby game after 12 minutes, all hope was lost, and he's a 34-year-old guy who's been played, and he's played a hell of a lot of matches in a short space of time when he had no fitness. Paul, do you have little faith in Gnongby and Kenneth Sahor, like Phil, who normally sits there, does, and perhaps a lot of other people who certainly have been far from convinced and saying they just don't look up to it? If Ricky Lambert isn't fit or can't play every match, who's going to play as the striker, and are they good enough?
Yeah, well, I mean, my first impressions of them are the same as Phil's, to be honest with you, which is exactly the impression I had with Etienne Velikondia when I first saw him play for Cardiff in a game at Ashton Gate. I just thought, it's wrong to say that somebody, got to be careful what I say here. Let's just say I was surprised that professional strikers at Cardiff City FC. Rudy Gusted was different. I always thought there was a rawness.
He was going to make it. I did as well. Yeah,
there was something there that you felt. In a few years,
if he learns the position better.
I don't get that impression with the other two at the moment. So that's a work in practice at the very best.
Okay, let's have a couple more comments. Wayne says, I think if Warnock gets Cardiff in the top 10 in January, Tam has to back him. One from Glasgow Bluebird says, I'd rather a Rowbury type over Bellamy. He also says, lovely to see Abbo on here today. So
who's that, a friend of mine or something?
I don't know.
In Scotland, so
it must be plenty of Warnock. Great appointment, good appointment. How far do we think Cardiff can go this season? What is realistic now under him? Is promotion out of the question, says Stevie? 25 to 1 to get to the playoffs, 100 to 1 for promotion. I'd have a punt, he says.
Well, you can have a punt. I mean, I bet you wouldn't have a punt if it was 2 to 1, but 25 to 1, why not? You can have a punt. But I would air caution and say to everyone, listen, great appointment, lovely, we're all together and kind of going in the same direction and kind of got your buzz back for it. But, one game at a time, do you know what I mean? I think a good stadium, as full as you can get it, 15, 18,000 loud on it, they're all behind the manager, behind the team. I think one game at a time, and then it's you have to gain momentum, John. But what you also have to realise is other teams ain't going to give you that. It's okay saying, oh, well, what he done at Rotherham, but he might not win 6 draw, 6 lose. He might lose the first 6. You have to give it time to develop. But what I would say is just one game at a time. So when we get back off international duty, first game, focus on that. Try and get 3 points, and then.
It's a big game. It's a TV game. Bristol 7-side.
It is a derby, exactly.
Derby.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think in that game? What will be the impact in terms of the crowd when you go to that game, in terms of numbers and atmosphere? Do you think there will be a real significant, tangible difference just by this one?
I do, yeah, because you can tell by the feedback that you're already mentioning there. I haven't come across anything negative yet, and I know people who are suddenly saying, oh, I'm going to go to that game now because it's Warnock's first game. I do think there'll be a tangible difference. I think there'll be a tangible difference in the
atmosphere,
not just the atmosphere, but the way Cardiff fans go to that game. They will go with a sense of expectation rather than a sense of foreboding. And I repeat again, Cardiff fans on their day in that ground, Blakey and I have sat together in that ground for games like Man City. I appreciate that was a little bit of a one-off, right? But Cardiff fans are like the 12th man when they're rocking inside that stadium, as they were at Ninian Park. It's been nothing like that this season, nor last for that matter. But suddenly the Warnock effect will re-galvanise the fan base, if you like. That in turn will feed to the players, then they will feed back to the fans. And this is what I mean about stirring the passion. And it becomes Wales have the mantra together stronger, obviously, but it becomes that sort of mantra for Cardiff City now. So I think there will be a significant difference. Bristol City are going really well. They'll bring close to 2,000 fans down. It'll be a riveting atmosphere. It really will. The like of which we haven't seen at that ground. Probably not since the day that Cardiff returned to blue for that Fulham game.
A bit what you always want from, and they're more than capable of doing it, is that bit of intimidation. That they're behind their team 100%, but they slightly intimidate the opposition. You don't want anything stupid happening, obviously, but I know players who are since retired and I'll tell you, they hated playing at Ninian Park. They won't give that impression when they're playing, but they'll tell you afterwards, "Oh, that place was so intimidating." They even say, like, "How did you play there?" Because it was so intimidating. Well, you had to play well more often than not. What they tell you, simple as that. So no, mate, and I think this is what I say about momentum, and this is what I say about now. If we're on the board now, Paul and I and whatever, you grab Ken Chew and you grab the chairman and you say, right, listen, what's going to happen out there? The derby couldn't ask for a bigger match. We have to build on that. So we can't go backwards from now on. We can't have this, because you're going to get a major surge and then a big drop off, because if it drops off again, I don't think some of those fans will come back for a very long, or until there were new owners or something like that. So this is they have to understand, and take the criticism that's been aimed at you. We all get criticised, but you have to understand as a hierarchy that this is your last chance saloon to get everyone on board, to get that stadium rocking, to get a good feel factor, to get the confidence of everybody behind the club's hierarchy, saying, right, we understand, we support your decisions. Because right now, there's a continual split. This is the first time where you can say, in probably 3 years, that everyone's gone, okay, we like that. We're going in the right direction. So take advantage of it, because as you see, successes like that, failure like that in football, really.
We've talked a lot about the players, Paul. You said about what good players are at Cardiff. Why then have they been so poor under Paul Trollope? Why was Paul Trollope's reign such a disaster, given the fact he's got a reputation as a good coach? You've got Ryland Morgans came in there, obviously done great things with Wales, been at Liverpool before, good reputations. Why did this just fail so dismally?
Maybe he was trying to be too ambitious, because there is no Gareth Bale or Aaron Ramsey in this team, and they try to implement this so-called Welsh style, which they want to become the Cardiff way of playing. Maybe he clearly got team selection wrong in terms of not picking his quicker players in the team, and that had a huge knock-on effect. The loss of David Marshall caused, in my view, instability in terms of Cardiff losing their confidence at the back, if you like. And speaking of confidence, whenever they went a goal behind, heads just seemed to drop. Paul Trollope didn't seem to manage that side of the dressing room very well. Neil Warnock will be the opposite. You cannot see heads dropping under that man. If they go a goal behind, he will forcefully ensure that they battle even harder, if you like. His team play
for 90 minutes, I can tell you that. His teams always do.
In terms of Paul, I have sympathy for Paul Trollope. I really, really do. He clearly is a brilliant coach. He was an integral part of Wales' success at Euro 2016, an understated one, but nonetheless, he was the coach in that side next to Coleman and Ocean Roberts. So, but some people are just more suited to being a number 2 than a number 1. And I just didn't feel that being the main man, particularly with the pressures that go with it in the capital of Wales and the expectation levels upon that club, fair or unfair, I just didn't think that he was capable of coping with that.
Bizarrely, it seemed to be a coaching tactics problem that was the issue, didn't it? Because it wasn't sort of outside. I mean, obviously the recruitment and things like that. You know, I'm sure he would flag up as being a right.
I said this. I know exactly where you're going, John.
He had a real good ride from the media.
Yeah.
You compare to the ride, like so you gave to poor old Russell Slade.
Let me chuck one at you. I chucked this out last night. What I will never understand. I said in the first game of the season, I was commentating, and I said to Rob Phillips, Kadeem Harris will be Paul Trollope's saving grace because he's the only player with pace. Right? He will have to go to him in the end and play him. Now, I could see it way back when. Fans then, bit by bit, play him. He's coming on. The boy come on in one game, got man of the match, I think, in 20 minutes or something ridiculous like that. Right? So, everyone's saying it, media, everywhere, everyone is saying it. Now, Trolls, sticks his stake in the ground and says, no, he's going to stay on the bench. I think they went up to Preston, got battered 3-0. The only reports coming back, Kadeem Harris was the only player worth talking about. Sub next game. I started to think, that's like self-sabotage. What are you doing, Trolls? Just accept the fact that you were wrong about that player and put him in, because he's going to give you a chance of keeping your job at the end of the day. Whatever reason, keep bringing the boy on and put him on the left side when you think to yourself, well, Noon keeps chopping on his left and it's getting red, so chuck him on the left and tell him to go outside. Put Kadeem on the right, tell him to go outside. So you've got a tricky kind of pacey winger on one side and you've got a raw pacey winger on the other side. You just thought it's like just logic, obvious. Everyone could see it, and he'd be putting him on a right back and stuff like that. And I think to myself, like Paul just said, he's a great coach. How is that great coaching? I'm like, what? Coaching is not just about setting up and the ball hands and doing a drill, and coaching is about getting inside the psyche of my player, making him understand what I need from him, and trusting him, and letting him know this whole setup relies on every individual collectively. And if you drop off, we're left with a gap, a hole. We falter. So it's not just about going out and setting up the cones. Mate, I know how to kick a ball. I know how to pass the ball. I loved managers who got into my head, told me I was so this and that and this.
Who did that? Who was the best at that for you?
The best? Best manager? Probably, I'd say a toss-up between May and Bassett. I would say Eddie done it, but I was so young. So what he done, he kind of, I have to give him thanks, God rest him, because he kind of put in place. I tell you another, and it wasn't just him, I tell you another person, was Paul Ramsey. What they do, they get inside your head, inside your psyche, in different ways and tell you how important you are. But then that sets you in stone for the rest of your career, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Which I think is kind of lacking these days. I think it's overlooked too much. Like, you're just told to go out and play. Come in, you didn't play well. It is really such a mental game. It's incredible.
So to take that quickly a bit further, what Blakey has said there is that he was lacking the man management things that you need as a number one. But going back to the coaching thing, we had the absurd situation when Cardiff were a goal down against Derby. He brought Kadeem Harris as his saviour on, played him on the left wing, kept Craig Noon on the right wing. So you had two wingers who couldn't go to the byline because they'd be using the wrong foot, so they were cutting inside all the time, and it was meat and drink to the Derby centre-backs and full-backs. If I can see that as Joe Public, surely somebody with Paul's coaching expertise, which I maintain he has got, could have seen that. So, it was no wonder Cardiff looked one. And
someone then said, what he needed was someone of experience, maybe to sit up in the stand and give it. Well, that's why he brought Lenny there. He put a walkie-talkie on, and Lenny Lawrence should be put. I would have thought the best way to do it was, right, you can see so much more from upstairs, so radio down. But after that, when you watch those analysis back, to not be able to see, I won't accept that he didn't see it. I think there was something else. Well, I don't know whether it was stubbornness or what, but there was a reason why Charles was saying, I'm not going to play Kadeem Harris for 90 minutes. There must have been, because you can't have everybody, farmers and their dogs are coming and saying, should we play Kadeem Harris? Everybody could see it, but Charles just refused to do it. And I'll if I ever see him face to face, I'll say to him, mate, just talk to me about that one. What was that about?
But the most worrying thing for me about this is that, it's not the first time Blakey's talked up to Kadeem Harris. The fans have talked up to Kadeem Harris. We've done so in the media. We're not talking about Lionel Messi here. We're talking about a young kid who's very raw, and whose main virtue is his actual directness and his pace rather than his silky skills. And yet he's seen as the saviour for the Trollop era, which underlines to me how bad it really was.
How far we were, yeah. Because at the end of the day, as well, that's what I've said. I don't say Kadeem is a world beater. He's just the only thing you've got that you need. And you need it. You need pace in the team.
Well, doesn't that now remain a massive problem? Because I hope you've got a manager who loves players to get to the byline, loves to get the ball in. But like you say, the only player of any genuine pace who can do that is a raw.
Yeah, and let me say, and this is where I think someone like Neil Warnock, it would be great for someone like Kadeem Harris, because he will get into his psyche. Because young players today, their attitude is, I don't get an opportunity. I don't get an opportunity. Well, let me tell you, my friend, when that opportunity comes and starts knocking, it's no good saying I've had 3 good games and only ever, 5 are a bit rocky. You've got to go and produce now. Week in, week out. And listen, when people say week in, week out the next 10 games, if you play 10, 7 of them have got to be on it. 1 or 2 average, okay, you can accept 1 or 2 below par. But 6, 7, 8 of those games, you've got to be on it. That's the demand now. So if you get your opportunity and you don't take it, if we were sat here this time next year, I wouldn't be saying, Kadeem Harris can. No, because you've had your opportunity and didn't take it. So it's now, I'm saying it's now, if Neil Warnock goes down that route and decides to play him, the ball is now in your court, son. You've got to produce.
But will there be people at the club, Paul, people in the hierarchy, saying all this to Warnock, saying the things you've just been saying about Kadeem Harris, about the lack of pace, about what the problems have been under Trollope so badly?
I don't know if they will specify Kadeem Harris particularly. They'll talk in more general terms about a lack of pace. I think they will definitely have been telling him about the lack of morale, stroke confidence in that dressing room and the fragility of certain players, and how someone like him is needed to build those individuals up. I think those are the more likely conversations that will take place. Again, in general terms, though, they will be saying we have got much, much, much better players than our current position at the table suggests, and can you get us up to a position more befitting with the quality of our squad?
They won't know what hit them, the players. I'm telling you something, they're going back to like my era. Ronnie Jepson, Big Ronnie, Neil Warnock. Who's the third person coming with him?
Kevin Blackwell.
Listen, that's old school with a new school twist, if you like.
It was all flat caps and
yeah. They are the first thing they're going to say is right, work.
It might be a job for you. You're old school.
Is he talking to you?
I don't know much about Jepson. What's?
Oh, Ronnie, he's
he was Sheffield. He was Sheffield, yeah.
Yeah.
Forest?
Yeah. Big striker, wasn't he? Big.
Yeah. So what's his? Has he just been with Warnock everywhere?
Yeah. I think he might have played from down at Plymouth or something like that.
Is the one note of caution in the Warnock story, because he's pretty much had success everywhere, being promoted, that his time at Leeds, though, another sort of difficult club like Cardiff, wasn't particularly fruitful. It kind of showed that Warnock doesn't guarantee you success.
Nothing's guaranteed, but this is as close as you can
think. Right, this is it. We got
Nothing's guaranteed, but this is as close to guarantee you're going to get. Right now, my worry and my only worry about the whole situation is, listen, I don't know Neil personally, but I've got a very, very good friend who knows Neil personally. My only worry about Neil is that, listen, he ain't going to be told by people he knows know far less than him about the game, what to be done, who to be playing. He's not going to be led. He's a leader. So my only worry is that the club don't say, it's your baby, we're trusting you, we got this. And by the way, if you can give us advice on this or that or this or that, be of great significance and great help.
Can
to
you
us.
allay Nathan's fears there?
I just hope they leave him. Do you know what I mean?
Well, those are down to the private conversation he's going to be having with that very hierarchy he talks of. What I'd like to think is that because of his stature and the money they have doubtless had to pay to bring him on board, there will be more latitude for him than perhaps was the case with some of his more immediate predecessors.
That's a great politician's answer.
By the same,
I love it.
well, and I'm going to give you another politician's answer. By the same token, he, as a 67-year-old, has and will be respectful of the fact that Vincent Tan is the money man behind this club. And so I'd like to think he will manage, in inverted commas, Vincent Tan as well as he manages his players. How's that for a politician?
Well, that's
so they've got to work in tandem.
Right, it's the exact same thing as what I'm saying, Paul. They should draw on him for a lot of his experience.
Yep.
Not just say, here's the team, we trust you because of your past record and our past record, and we don't know enough about this game ins and outs, hence why we're bottom of the table.
Yep.
So here you go, over to you, and we need you for this, we need you for that. So they draw on not his experiences on the field and just say, go on, do it, but how do we build a club? How do we get all these things back on side, the fans back on side? Because, his experience is going to be vital. They'd be foolish to just say, like, go on then, the team's yours, off you go, and we'll sort everything else out. I can't imagine anyone on the board or at the club doing that. I don't suppose Neil's going to go and kick down doors and saying, you're having my advice whether you like it or not, because he's a short-term fix. But for me, by the time I'd finish with Neil, I doubt he'd want to work in management again. He'd be exhausted. Like, my brain's done in, I'm finished.
So, I don't see how you can have the equation of a short-term fix, which he clearly is on the field of play, but the long-term solution as well. That's a bit of a dilemma, isn't it? Unless he's there for a certain period of time.
Well, this is what I'm saying. The short period of time he is guaranteed to be there, take as much out of him as you can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of more comments. And Kerry, just on Trollope, saying, I think you media guys got carried away with Trollope because of the Welsh high from Euro 2016. Oshin Robertson Coleman would have been telling him what to do on the pitch.
Can I just say on that, a lot of fans last season on different phone-ins on this show, Late Testament, were saying Charles when we win, correct? When we lose, they'd say Slade out.
Yes,
Slade
in
out,
terms of
Slade
Slade,
out.
yeah, absolutely.
And I was saying, and I've always maintained, if you're the coach, you coach the team Monday to Friday, what happens on a Saturday? If they win, you can't say that's because of him, and if they lose, it's because of him. You're the coach.
I mean, do we look back now, Paul? Russell Slade got the same players to 8th. Were you wrong about Russell Slade?
No. The football under Slade is the worst I have seen at that football club, probably, or as bad as anything I've seen there. It was terrible. I still maintain that the players at his behest, the season before and last season, were more than good enough to be in the top 6. That was the club's attitude as well. You had a brilliant goalkeeper in David Marshall, sport for choice at centre back. He had some more than capable players there. He inherited a bumper squad off of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Maybe it was too top heavy, but the hard work had been done in getting decent players to the club, who for whatever reason, a lot of them have not delivered. So no, I don't think we were harsh on him at all. I know there are some people who think that what's happened subsequently puts Russell Slade in a much better light, but he's not setting the world on fire with Charlton.
And it's difficult, always difficult. Good uppercut. It's always difficult when you're a number 2 to then become a number 1. I'd love to see a stat, if anyone could find one or send one in, stat of number 2s who have stayed at the same club and become number 1s, just how successful they've been. I doubt you find many, because you're going from it's different from being like a player and then becoming the player manager. You always find that the person who does that has to separate himself, distance himself, and put someone in between him and the players. That's what you always find. So going from that person who's, but you would think, right, if you've got good relationship with the boys, you would know them better. So you should know what makes them tick. That's why I say it's more of a psychological thing than just a footballing thing for me.
Listen, John, I think it was an opportunity missed last season. I think that it wasn't a great championship last season.
Yeah.
I think it's a much tougher league this year with the likes of Newcastle, Norwich and so in there. I think other teams have regrouped. A lot more money has been spent. So it's a lot harder task this season. With regard to Slade stroke Trollope, Paul Trollope was the wrong appointment. Did we? You mentioned Kerry there saying, did we get carried away in the media because of Wales' success? Possibly. If so, we plead guilty. But look, we indicated at the time that we had reservations about Trollope, but you could hardly come out and lambast the decision. You had to get behind the bloke and give him a chance.
That is the problem. I speak freely in my mind 9 times out of 10, but I'm not going to come out and say, he's completely the wrong decision. At the end of the day, I work from the basis of wait until the manager's put in, then you support the manager, and then you analyse from there. You don't pre-analyse or preempt what he's going to do and say, well, he's this. Listen, there's been managers in the past who people have gone, no. Remember Martin O'Neill at Leicester before they won the Premier League and all that, and that's kind of, he was lambasted coming from Wickham and all that, and they begged for him to come back for years after.
The best example is Claudio Ranieri. When he came in at Leicester, he was being castigated everywhere.
Hammered.
So you couldn't, the fact is, he was appointed, that decision wasn't going to be changed in the immediate short term. So we had to get, everybody had to give the man a chance.
Whoever the manager is, you always have to support him.
But I have to say, I never had the confidence in Trollope doing the job successfully that I have with Warnock doing the job successfully. And I think that seems to that seems to sort of carry on through the majority of fans listening to what people have said to me.
When you hear the players will soon see what proper hard work is, the type they haven't been putting in so far. Plenty of that. Nice one here. I think Warnock will get those players walking like they're a few inches taller. I can't wait to see us next Friday now. So all the type of positive comments we haven't had since. I can't remember the last time we had them.
Probably since the Premier League, but then that was against the backdrop of the red, so it wasn't quite the same either.
No, indeed. And there's even a little song here, it would seem, for Neil Warnock. But,
go on, sing that then.
I can't sing.
No, you've got to. Now, what's the point in saying it if you're not going to sing it? Come on.
Sing it?
Come on. Our language.
No, come on. Come on.
Couldn't possibly.
Stop blushing, come on.
Couldn't possibly. Lots of people talking about players, Warnock, wheeler dealer type maybe, I don't know. Is there anything you can get in before January? Any free transfers, anything? Talking about that pace, that's not in the squad.
I said I would be, I read a quote from, I think it was the head of the supporters trust, that a conversation he'd had with Ken Chew and saying that they had a scouting network, UK, European wide. That needs to improve, whoever that is. If I was Warnock, I'd be straight into that. I'm going to look at that. And right now, I'd be going to Italy's Serie A and second division, Spanish, German. I just go across Europe and I'd be looking for players who free transfers, pace, or free transfers, not connected to any club. That's what I'd be doing. I'd be trying to get him in. What's the boy at QPR who come from Blackburn? Black lad, winger.
Junior Hoylett?
Yeah.
He's still available.
He's still available. There's someone, and he finished the season at QPR. He was coming back into sort of form. Obviously suffered a confidence crisis, but there's someone. And working with someone like Warnock, you know, he drives confidence into you, like, you know. So there's an idea. There's someone I've been looking around and thought, yeah, there's a player. I doubt, you know, we get the same sort of money he was on at QPR, but that's when I say players, you've got to accept right now. I've got to rebuild my career.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, let's finish up then with predictions as we always do. We won't do it for a game. Let's predict where Cardiff City will finish the season, and the Neil Warnock, just for fun.
The optimist in me
Says 8th.
The optimist in me says that they will very quickly turn it around. They will have the very momentum Nathan talks about. There are a lot of games left this season.
35, yeah.
Is it as many as that?
35 games,
11, yeah.
Yeah.
The optimist in me says they are a minimum of the top 10, but they can even start pushing towards the end of the season for the top 6, i.e. 6th place. That's being highly optimistic, of course. Yeah, I think they'll probably finish round about 6th, 7th, 8th, I'm going to predict. There you are, that's a bold prediction for you, but that's the confidence I have in this manager.
I'm going to say they'll finish around about 10th, right? And if you could convince him to stay another year, then I think you'd have a serious go at it next year. But I think, and I'm not saying they'll finish 10th because I don't think he's got the ability to get them there. I think they'll finish 10th because, as Paul alluded to earlier, there's so many other good teams in the Championship.
Yeah.
And it's not Neil that goes out and plays the games. At the end of the day, the players still have to perform. And they're not going to perform every week, but they will perform better than they have been.
Has he got the fixtures there to get off to a good start? Bristol City at home, Sheffield Wednesday at home, so 2 home games to start, then Forest away, I think that's another live TV game, then Wigan at home, and then Newcastle away.
Well, yes is the answer to that.
It's a perfect start, I think.
2 home games.
Sheffield
the
Wednesday.
Derby.
Derby, yeah.
That is going to get the stadium bouncing again.
Sheffield Wednesday were a fantastic team last season. I don't know what's happened with Carvajal this season. I rate him really highly as a manager, but they seem to have completely lost their way and possibly changed their style of play. Forest are in a bit of a mess. Wigan are really struggling. Crikey, if they could get some short-term results here and head to Newcastle, is that
Newcastle
away or home?
on the 5th of November, yeah.
Yeah, and
Away.
that could become a rip-roaring game. They'll lose that one up there, whatever the Warnock effect is my guess. But yeah, he does. You know, he doesn't have Norwich, Newcastle, those sorts of teams first up, does he? So he has a smoothing in period, and as Nathan says, a derby game. He is the archetypal person to get a team fired up for a derby match. I can't, you know, Bristol City.
I wish I was still playing. It's one of those brief moments I think, oh, I'd love to be.
He's looking for free transfers.
Yeah, with 2 legs, I hasten to add, not one.
Listen, I think we should issue a note of caution here. Have we all got it horrendously wrong about Neil Warnock? You know, is the Leeds experience you alluded to something that we need to be factoring into the equation?
A 67-year-old man as well.
Are we being? I don't know. You read anything into that, John? Because
60s
you know,
and new 50s, mate. What's wrong with you? Did you know that? 40s is new 30s.
You look at the success of some of the managers at international level and so on. You know, you look at the success of how old's Ranieri. You know, so and he's just won the Premier League. So. Pellegrini won the Premier League, isn't Pellegrini well into his 60s? So, you know, I don't think you read anything into that. I think you that's a bonus in terms of it brings his worldly experience.
Ageist you.
I was just raising it. No, indeed.
But, you know, I'm just wondering, have we all got it wrong?
No, his record speaks for himself. I think you can only go on his past record. And his past record says he is...
Particularly in that division, he's
7, 8, 9 times out of 10, he is successful or fairly successful. Yeah, there's very few failures. He had like 12, 13 clubs, something like that. There's very few failures on his CV.
No, yeah.
You know, so he's tried and he's tested. You know, I hope he forgives me for doing him in the playoff final at Sheffield United. Sorry about that. It was Dave Jones. It's Dave Jones.
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. Okay, we'll leave that. Well, it's been very positive.
Great to be positive.
Can I just say though that
Can't keep him. He's going to want to come back next week now.
I hope so.
No, it's been really nice to be invited on the show for the first time, and most importantly, it's really nice for Blakey to let me get 3 words in during the hour. So
That's 4.
Right, thank you, chaps. We'll leave it there. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks for all your comments, particularly the positive ones. Good times ahead, hopefully. Plenty more news on Warnock on Wales Online throughout the day, and indeed the coming days. And we will see you again, same time, same place next week.